Yeah, so like I saw this article on USA Today that said that New Jersey to require schools to teach LGBT history. It's Pride Month, so I thought that it was good to bring this up. Now, I think it's California that already has that law. What's your guys' initial reaction to that?
Is it a whole class? Or is it just like
I think that's
sec-
a-
In
I think-
American history, probably.
No, yeah, I don't think it would be a whole class. I
Yeah.
think that's what kind of it's almost making you perceive, and that's what fumes a lot of anger, that people are like, I don't want to take a class on LGBT. But I think it would be more so like, okay, so as we're learning about history and stuff, we're also recognizing people in history that were like, okay, this was a gay leader, or this person was whatever.
Oh, true.
So what's your guys' kind of initial reaction to that?
I think it's needed. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's really dope. I think growing up, like a lot of these artists, like Queen and Elton John. Like, I never like knew that they were gay. It was just like I just knew of them for their music, right?
Yeah.
But in these
I
movies,
think Queen is all gay, just Freddie.
yeah, just
right?
Freddie Mercury. But I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
you never, like, I'm sure like the older generation knew that, but like as kids, we don't really like know what it is to be gay and stuff like that. So learning in these like classes growing up, it's like, okay, I know what that is now, and like it's okay to be this or that.
I mean,
And-
I think in the same way that we learn about different like things that
Different
in
races
American
and,
history, you learn about different races, different
Cultures
I know in my American history class we even learned about Islam and Christianity and Judaism, and it was just a segment of it. I don't see anything. I think that it'd be beneficial actually to have something, because right now the way that they try to kind of hide it is by almost like shaming it, and I feel like once people come to that realization, they actually end up enduring a lot more like mentally, because it's so hush hush until they learn about it. Oh, don't talk about it, don't introduce it to them, don't let them be around it. But then when it's taught in a curriculum, it's kind of just known to them, and it's not something that they're too curious about. It's right there, and honestly at this day and age they can go on their phone and Google really what they want anyway. So as long as you're building it and incorporating it into society, I feel like it's America. Like, let's just be all inclusive.
I don't know how much in depth you have to go with it if it was on a curriculum. Because I feel like if you're talking about a certain thing in history anyways, you could just mention that and it'd be just kind of like a quick side comment regardless.
I mean, I think
just
in the
think-
same way that they talk about slavery.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
what are the
exactly.
problems that the LGBTQ has, endured over the last, 50 years? Like, what laws were in place to keep them from getting married? When did that, lift?
Okay, yeah.
And that type of stuff. I think just in the same way that we talk about different types of struggles for different groups and minorities, it would be beneficial to have this segment in there as well.
Well, I don't know if we do that though. At least
In your
where I went to school, like we never talked about
W-
how you're saying we talked about, like you guys talked about Islam and Judaism and
It
this
was
and
a
that.
small
Like
segment. You guys didn't have
we
that?
would mention here and there if it would really pertain to it, but we never were like, oh, this is how people there live. This is what it's really like, and about regions and cultures and things like that.
Well, during Black History Month, that whole month we'd learn about like African American history and like Martin Luther King and like
and slavery
and
and
slavery
just like,
and all that stuff.
history
Like they went
of,
really in depth. We were like, dang, the presidents were messed up.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
and
I
I
don't-
remember that clearly. And the only reason why I remember that we talk about Muslims is because I remember when the teacher brought it up. And it was literally one day that we talked about religions. Only one day. And I remember when they brought it up and they said Muslims, like everybody looked at me, and that's why it kind of sparks
Yeah.
a memory in my mind. But again, it was one day in all of high school, and I still remember it.
Yeah.
And it's like they addressed it. They kind of talked about, what our practices and this, and it was like basically like bullet points of what Muslims are and what Islam is. And I think that if they kind of incorporated that in a way too, it's not like people are completely
I don't mean to like put any groups of people in a ranking, but it's almost like it's just kind of annoying that we talk about we make headlines out of these things and have debates about them almost. And what?
Nothing. I was like,
Mr.
ooh,
Krabsy?
process.
What?
Process is starting up something. No, I'm just
No. I mean, like, it's because this is gonna make a huge thing, right? Like, people are gonna be like, "Oh, we should have this. We shouldn't have this." It's not a big deal. Like,
Right.
I think that it's easy to incorporate, but at the same time, it's like, I remember being in school and like, nobody was ever like, "Oh, today marks the first day of Ramadan and Muslims are fasting and this is how it goes," because that's a quick 1 minute thing too. And again, like, it's not to rank different types of people, but it's like, how far do we go and how much are we incorporating different things into the curriculum if we're gonna start doing things like this.
Well, maybe they should change their curriculum to incorporate those things.
Yeah.
How much of what we were learning was important, and how important is it to learn about people's different backgrounds and different groups' backgrounds?
But do you think that making it part of the curriculum is going to change a teacher who like is going to feel a certain way, or like the area that they live in? Because, for example, where I live, it's very conservative here.
Mm-hmm.
And don't you think that in certain areas, a lot of people are going to be like, oh yeah, like this is part of the curriculum, so now we have to go over this.
I feel like instead of it like bothering people, I think it just is a way to be, and again, I'm not trying to stress the word inclusive, because I know that it's hard to be inclusive to everybody, but to that one child who is questioning their sexuality, and it's mentioned in class, and the struggles of it's mentioned in class, and that they feel a part of something bigger, I think that down the line, a lot of people, even now, we're in that weird part of the generation where there's people who are 10 years older than us who had a really hard time coming out in high school, who were bullied for it, who had just a difficult time coming out to their families and that, and then the people who are younger than us, who have a way easier time with coming out with it. Not saying that they didn't have as many struggles, but society in general has become a lot more accepting to it.
That's actually a concern that people have, what you're saying, like people that are questioning their sexuality. It says it kind of takes away the power from parents and may encourage kids to question their sexuality. They use the word encourage. And I think that what they mean is like there's not parents signing off to this like, yeah, I want my kids to learn about this or whatever, which is kind of weird because like, why does that matter?
Yeah, but I mean, I think the way that this article worded it definitely makes it very uncomfortable by saying like, first this article
they're just
makes it sound like
addressing
there's a class.
They're just addressing the concern.
But they're never going to be like, hey guys, so here's class. So how many of you guys have like thought about your own gender? Have you ever?
No, I think it's to say that like, oh, this leader in history was gay, and for some reason the people that are concerned about this feel like, oh, if they look up to that leader, they're also going to start thinking like, oh, then maybe I should be gay. I don't know. Like that's...
I mean, I think that it's more so influential people in history who made influential movements in the LGBT community that would be mentioned, such as Martin Luther King is, the person that we talk about when we talk about Black history. People aren't idealizing him for a lot of other things, while he has many other things that you could be. He's a great speaker, but mainly they associate it with Black history. I'm assuming that the influential people that they'd be talking about would be the ones who made big steps for the LGBT community. If we're holding that same energy, I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember Marsha P. Johnson? Sean talked about that she's the one that threw her heel.
Oh, yeah.
That's why Pride happened. So it would be like, sorry, I just had to mention that. It would be like people like that you would talk about, like, this is a event in history that occurred.
Yeah.
And this is what happened.
Neha saying that, again, kind of what I said, how there's somebody who was it that threw the shoe? Marsha P. Johnson. And that's why Pride happens. Yeah. There you go.
We actually went to a gay parade recently. Or, sorry, Pride. What do you call it? Pride parade?
Just
Pride parade.
Pride.
Yeah.
Which is, like, very new to the area that I live in again, because it's a very conservative area. But there's actually, like, a town that's a little bit more liberal called Haverty Grace, which threw their first Pride festival, I guess, in Hartford County. So that was kind of cool. What did you think about it?
I thought it was really cool because there was like a lot of kids running around with the flag. They were like aware of what's going on, and but there was one part that saddened me, and
the protest. That saddened you?
Kind of. It was just like, like, let these... I mean, like, I'm sure they were there for their, like, they're not trying to do any harm. They're just, like, had their opposing viewpoint or whatever. But it was just, like, these people have been struggling for, so many years about, like, being open about who they are. Just, like, let them have this day, like, and just...
I think that both of them are struggling at the same time. Yeah, which is, like...
That's true.
Like, the people that are finally expressing themselves, and also the people that are like really religious. I think people that are really religious in the country feel like they're under attack, which I'm not saying that. I think that what they did, the time and place, was inappropriate, because it was like
they're holding up like signs like
of Bible verses and things like that. But if you talk to them, which I was actually there covering with like a magazine group to see what's going on, so we went over and talked to them, and actually like they were really nice. They were like,
I'm sure.
They're out here expressing their views, and we just wanted to also express our views of how our love for God and this and that. And I was like,
But is that appropriate place? Like, for example, at like, say, so Pride is essentially like celebrating, you know, who they are and what it is, right? So if you, we're Pakistani and they have a Pakistani festival every year. If people,
Who does?
like, there's a Pakistani Mela every year
Yeah, come
on 14 August.
He
On
lives
Oh,
here.
like in Pakistan,
No,
No,
here.
They have a 14 August Mela every year.
in DC.
Yeah, DC
Okay.
and in Virginia.
Yeah.
On
Other
August
places
14th, they
too.
have a festival every year for Pakistanis.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, somebody who doesn't feel right about the Muslims and the Pakistanis
I'd
and da
say-
da da, like if they were there protesting, that's not the right moment to do it.
What's there to protest there?
That's what I'm saying. Is
What if, like,
in
it-
some ways, people who are conservative, those
Yeah.
are the people who feel like they're under attack.
Okay.
I'm saying there's a time and place where people.
I think
are
they were trying to have a
expressing
conversation,
celebrating thing.
but that wasn't the place to do it.
Exactly,
Because
that's my point.
because what it did was it created a lot of like angry people that were like, this is finally our moment, like why are you here? And they made it a cool situation because they were like dancing on them and like
Making
they
out
were,
in front of them.
They were making out in front of them and
Yeah.
stuff, and it was funny. But yeah, I mean, I think that they were trying to both express their views. It would just didn't go well because
It wasn't
this
the right
is their
place.
parade.
It wasn't the right place.
this is not a debate parade.
I
Exactly.
mean, okay, this is the dumbest like comparison, but imagine going to like some Cardi parade, and then like Nicki fans come out. It's like, yo, get out of here!
It's
and
like,
then,
yeah, it's irrelevant.
shoot-
Like
yeah.
we're having our time right now.
Yeah.
Like don't, you know,
Yeah.
come here and just like have the conversation when it's appropriate.
Yeah.
Have the conversation when somebody's willing to actually sit down and talk to you about it, because then it's actually, you know, beneficial. But you coming to a place where people are coming to solely, you know, express themselves about that factor, and then you're putting Bible verses and, you know, trying to shame them about it, that's not the place to
Yeah.
do it.
There were churches there that were like supporting the event too. Like they had their
Wow.
own tents.
That's
And
amazing.
I mean, they probably like didn't fully like believe in what they were doing, but they were there to like talk, and they were there to support them and who they are as people.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's pretty
Nice.
cool. Like that was a nice way of doing
that is
that, if
nice.
they were, you know,
Yeah.
trying to talk.
It was also funny because we had just gotten done filming the Old Town Road parody,
Oh yeah.
and so we were dressed as cowboys.
Oh yeah, and
And
everyone's
everyone there was kind of like, it's a festival, so people were in costumes or in like drag wear and different things, and people thought that we were like in a gay
Cowboy
cowboy
gang.
sort of alliance thing, and they were like, they were hyping us up, and they were like talking to us when the protesters came. They're like, "Don't worry, guys. Like, all you got to do is this." We're like, "Oh, no, like,
oh, yeah, it's not
okay,
like that.
cool, yeah." So it's funny, but we looked hot, dude.
Yeah.
We were in cowboy. Why are you shaking your head? It's a hot guy summer, Amber.
Honestly,
Yeah,
now I support
boys
it.
only.
Woo!
Now I
Hot guy
support it.
summer.